To meta and schema, defining the content about your content. I hope everybody is super excited to learn about metadata today. Very, very exciting. I love being in this science building where, look, we have the periodic table of elements in every classroom around here. Remember those? There's a lot more things on there now than there used to be. Notice that. Okay, so like I said before, you can follow along with the slides. They'll always be up at gymbir.ch/meta-schema-drupal. If there's any WordPressers in the house, I also have a WordPress-focused presentation. Just replace the word Drupal with WordPress. Yes. I work for an awesome distributed company called Canopy Studios. We're about 45 awesome employees located throughout Canada, United States, and Mexico. We're always looking for more awesome talent and employees. So if you're looking to work for an agency, wherever it is that you live, we'd love to get to know you. So today I want to talk about a different look for your website. We know how our website looks like on our server, on our phones, like when we go and visit it in a browser. But what does it look like when it leaves our server? Right now, these big 6 companies control most of the traffic on the internet. And they're displaying your content differently. So the social media sites are displaying card-like interfaces. The search engines give you a list view. And really, of those 6, Google is a near monopoly, controlling more than 90% of web search volume, basically through YouTube, Google Images, and Google itself. So if people are searching for content, don't know anything about you, they are going to Google, more than likely. And on Google, what happens when they stop sending you these users to your website? So searching for things like, what is Drupal used for? Gives you an explanation and possibly a link or a few more searches. What time is it? There's no results for what time is it anymore. There used to be websites called timeanddate.com and dateandtime.com that used to get ad money for telling you what time it was. Now Google just tells you. Did I win the Mega Millions this last night? Nope. I didn't have to go to that webpage. They just gave me the answer. How do you cook corn on the cob? What electricians are near me? Who is Abraham Lincoln? Who's on Mount Rushmore? What is the best Drupal 8 module? How do you get from SFO to Badcamp? And what if there's only one search result? So as people use these speakable devices, there's only going to be one answer to your search. And Google or Alexa or Apple Siri is providing that. So the answer is metadata and structured markup. And we're going to dive deep into what's available right now and how to stay current and how to validate. So here's just an example of my page on Canopy's website. And just like I'd be going through in a content audit looking at what I'm going to mark up for my fields in Drupal, now I'm going through and marking up things looking for which schemas I'm going to select. So I'm a person, I have a job title, I have some social media links, those are same as schemas. I have an image, I've gotten a couple awards, I have a description, a home location, and knows about. Down on the bottom, I've written some blogs on the site. Those are articles. Articles have images and headlines and descriptions and so on. So let's be the metadata heroes that we all can be. Little kitty. Okay, here's the bottom line up front. The too long didn't read. We're going to go through these specifications. The World Wide Web Consortium's HTML 5.2 specs. Yeah. The WWIG, it's a working group that extended the W3C METATAG specs. The Open Graph Protocol, Twitter cards, Schema.org, and the Google Search Gallery. And then on the right side, we have validators that test all of these things. So as soon as we have a specification, we can test against it. So as developers, once we're implementing these specifications, how did we do? Did we do it right? We'll go through and show that we did. So let's talk about metadata. See, this is why I introduced Lego Uncle Jim before, because there's Lego Uncle Jim with Big Uncle Jim and meta. Meta is from the Greek preposition and prefix meaning after or beyond. It's a prefix used in English to indicate a concept which is an abstraction behind another concept used to complete or add to the latter. So this is the most meta image on the internet I could find. It's a card in a card catalog for a book about the card catalog in the library. This used to be hundreds of people's jobs. This is a picture of the Library of Congress in the 1910s or 1920s. This is the metadata on all these cards where these people were typing them up hand by hand, just like we do. At some point, this metadata was moved online. This is Dynix, an early implementation of digital representation of the card catalog. And put lovely Miss Librarian out of business. Okay, so on to the good stuff. The W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, specifies what is allowed in the metadata of a document. So this is data that's in your document that's not seen by the end user, but is parsed by the browser and anybody else that comes and consumes it. The specification is pretty stale, broken down into different sections and elements, and then which element is allowed, where it's allowed, and what it can be used for. But it breaks down to basically 5 different things. The head, the title, the base, the link, and then the meta tag, which is a little bit off screen there. There we go. And then, style tag too. So inside the head element, this collects all of the meta elements, the other metadata elements for the document. So basically, this defines that metadata, things about your content. If you open it, you must close it. If you have no metadata, it can be excluded. The title is the most important metadata element for browsers of the site, search engines, just about everybody. There can be only one. It can only be in the head, and if you open it, you have to close it. The base element, not terribly used anymore, but a base element allows authors to specify the document base URL for other URLs. So you could set your URL for the whole site. I haven't really used this since the .html days. The link element allows you to link to other resources, so style sheets, media, the language, the reference policy, sizes for icons, basically metadata that you want to link to, not have in the head of the element. And then style. You can put inline style in your head, in the body, or in no script. If it's opened, it must be closed. You can use this anyway. And then, the most important thing, the meta tag. So the meta element represents the metadata that cannot be expressed used any of those other things. The most important thing about meta tags is that they are name-value pairs. Basically, the name is this and the content is this. They can only be used in the head, and it's just a singular tag. There's no end tag. And what I mean by name-value pairs is you say the name, like in this case, description, which most pages have, and then the content attribute sets what that value is. And this is going to be carried through the rest of the presentation. So name value pairs. There are a few standard meta tags. Not many. Application name, author, okay. Description, that's a good one. Generator, we usually take that out for security concerns. We don't want to tell people it's WordPress or Drupal or Joomla. Keywords, nobody pays attention to that because of stuffing. And then refer or policy. There are a few pragma directives. A pragmatic directive is telling the machine what to do with it. So this is used for like language, content type, if it's a HTML page or something else. You can refresh the page, set cookie. Again, not too popular uses. But what came about this is that there was a group of people that work on building these standards that thought the W3C was too slow. They didn't implement all of the things they were interested in. So they started another group called the Web Hypertext Application Technology Working Group. Rolls off the tongue. The WYTWG meta extensions were born, and it became a place where you can submit a proposal about a meta tag that you want to namespace. So they're still taking applications to this very day, and then they list them on the website. They even list failed proposals. In some cases, like Facebook Open Graph language never actually passed the proposal test, but it's still in use. So they list them all. But if you go to this page, you can just see tons of things. Like the first one is the Australian government has their own meta tag library. There's Dublin Core. There's citations for scholar stuff. Dublin Core was libraries and scholarly terms. There's geotags if you're locating things. Microsoft specific, Apple specific, Norton antivirus specific. So this list just goes on and on for days. So usually, again, what I do during like that content discovery is I'll come back and reference this real quick to see if any of my content matches on my site can be used for this. So like if you're doing location things, the geotags are pretty important too. Really cool. You can make your own meta tags if you want to. Some examples of things are apps that you would consume. So like I had a client who had a software version. Every year they come out with a new software version. And their search engine would parse the searches, but we wanted the latest version to come up first. So we'd put a tag in based on software version that's on this document, and then we'd weigh that in the search results higher. So we basically just had meta, name equals version, content equals 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. But you can do this for anything on your site. It's very easy to do in Drupal and WordPress, for your categories or your tags, and then, weigh them using searches or views, even something else. Once we've had these meta tags implemented, how do we know we did a good job? So we basically just made our own meta tags. We need to test. You can go to the W3C developer tool. The World Wide Web Consortium has a test called the Unicorn test, which tests HTML, CSS for validity. Basically, put in your URL, where you can actually upload a file if you're working on a development site, or paste in HTML and run it through and see your errors. And I've been working on this site for about 10 years. So I think this is pretty good. There's only 5, 10, 13. So for SEO, SEOs talk, people assume. What does Google understand? We don't have to guess. There is a web page on Google support that tells you exactly what meta tags they consume. And there aren't many. This little list right here, they even have a nice video of explaining them to you. But the title, description, robots, they have Google-specific ones you'd also find in that WhatWig list. Googlebot, Google site verification. They have these two, getting a little broken up at the end, but the content type, the character set, and if it page refreshes or not. So those three pragmatic ones at the end. And that's it. What's taken over is the Open Graph Protocol. This is started by Facebook, but it's an open source project. They've defined everything that goes into the meta tag and have additional help docs on developer.facebook.com. But basically, they're applying structured data using meta tags. So what happens is your page is no longer a page, but on Facebook's social graph, it becomes a rich object. So by defining the title, the type, giving it an image and a URL, these 4 required fields, your web page is no longer a web page, it becomes a movie or a video or a song or any one of their defined schemas. And their basic types are music, video, article, book, profile or person, and website. Once you've implemented these, Facebook has a debugger, Pinterest has a validator, basically the same thing as a debugger. In LinkedIn, there's a trick if you ever have clients accidentally share something on LinkedIn before they're supposed to, or realize there's a error in there, spelling error or something. You can put a random string at the end of the URL while sharing on LinkedIn, and it'll force LinkedIn to clear their cache and go grab that page again. So, shared the page, oh crap, go get it again, put a question mark, gobbledygook at the end, and it'll force them to clear their cache. The new spelling error will be in there. What happens with Facebook is, they're going to go catch your page and cache it. They're going to show you what they've scraped here, what the card will look like, and if they have any recommendations. Like this morning, my image wasn't being found, so if I go and scrape this page again, the image was fixed, but it found another problem. But basically, they're going to list everything, show you the card. They can even show you the raw tags that they're reading and parsing based on your page. So, pretty cool stuff there. Not to be outdone, Twitter created their own meta language also, which is pretty much exactly the same as Facebook Open Graph. Their idea of this was that you are creating cards, so they called it Twitter cards. There are only a few types. There's the summary card with large image, the player card if it's a video or audio piece, and then an app card if it's a software app or game or something like that. Most of the time, if your content has a nice image, you're going to want that summary card with large image so it appears as large as it can in people's Twitter feed. The regular summary card looks more like a little tile with an image on the left and the copy on the right. Once you have added that, you can come and validate your page on Twitter on developer or cards-dev.twitter.com. And again, they'll come and show you. They give you a little less information. They just give you a preview of what it will look like. Bless you. So, how do we implement this in Drupal? Why the Drupal METATAG module? The METATAG module has a base module that gives you title, description, and abstract, which is no longer used. And then a plethora of submodules that add all these extra bells and whistles. Once you install the module and enable any submodules you need, it gives you a config screen for METATAG defaults. So this is where you set the METATAG for all instances of the entity. It can be attached to any entity that has a URL. Children inherit the settings of the parent. So like CSS, METATAG settings are cascading. So if you set it on the global, all of the children of the global will inherit it. So in this case, the 403, 404 page, all pieces of content, the front page and the taxonomy term. So they're all nested, unless you overwrite it. And then we use the incredible tokens module to take values from the database and set attributes in there. You can also put text in for everything. So if you just want your site name or site slogan or description to be the same on every single page, you could just write it in and not use tokens. Here's what the form looks like. Basically just long lists of form fields with descriptions. How to set the page title, how to set the description, abstract keywords. So we use the token for a field I call node field teaser on each of the node. I have the page title and the site name for the title tag. When you finish, you can get a nice little overview of what you've set. Again, the name value pairs carry through here. So your name of your METATAG and the field data, the content on the right. In this case, they're all tokens, except for the Twitter card creator. I set my Twitter ID throughout the whole thing because I don't have a token for that. I just have at the Jim Birch. For those developers in the room, this is what the config looks like. So there's been some times where I've skipped the UI, just gone back in, found the name, and changed the value in the config, and you can just import it back. This is good to do if you have like a set of default METATAGs that you want to use on every site. You can just do this and do a config import, and set your node ID, get the content, and then all the tags that you wanted to get in there. This is 3 modules enabled. This is the METATAG, the Open Graph, and the Twitter card. The forms all the way expanded. The great thing about the METATAG module and all the submodules is that it sets every single possible METATAG you can set. The bad thing about it is that you can set every single METATAG you can possibly set. And you saw what my output was. I really wanted about a dozen. I didn't need 233. You also get a METATAG field. So you can allow your administrators to override this on a node-by-node basis. So we have our defaults, we've set them up, but what if I don't want to use the title format, or I don't want to have the teaser field be the description, I want to override it. You can add this to the field, and it shows up, if you use the default admin theme, it shows up on the right-hand side, and you get that huge form on the right side. But we found that this can be super overwhelming for content editors. It can lead to mismanagement, so they either go crazy in there, or it's so overwhelming that they don't use it at all. Too many forms on the edit screen can be a huge performance suck. So, we have 3 forms on there right now. As soon as we start adding schema.org data, the list gets longer and longer and longer, and we're starting to put hundreds and hundreds of fields onto an admin form. It can cause the page to take 3 or 4 seconds to load. There is an option in the later versions of METATAG where you can choose which of those METATAG submodules you want to appear on the screen. So if nobody's ever going to override the Twitter card settings, we can not have that form on there at all. If we have a content type that has schema event and another one that has schema person, the event one we're going to want to have on the event node, and the person on the person node, you can exclude or include those as you go. But what I like to do is I like to add fields to the content type that are used exclusively for the meta tag module, or it could be both. So I always add a teaser or a description field. You can use this in the display of the node, or you can exclude it completely. But that sets the basically the most important thing that content administrators want to change. An image. So if we have a social media card that we share, we can use an image. Sometimes we can use it in the display of the page where it's a big hero image at the top. Sometimes we don't have that in our design, but we still need an image for Facebook. And when we do that, we can set specific styles or sizes that are used for sharing on Facebook. So users can get an idea of what that's going to look like. As of a couple months ago, these were the sizes that Facebook and Twitter were looking for. They're both about 2:1, but slightly different. So Facebook wants 1200 by 628, and Twitter wants 1024 by 512. That one is a 2:1 ratio. And then I add a field group in the admin form to organize them. And this is what it looks like. So I just have a tab that says summary. We have our page title, our teaser, and then an image field. And then another tab to get into the content, the meat of the node. All right, to sum up, we install the METATAG modules, and we enable any submodules we need. We add fields that we need on the content type for items needing individual setting. And it doesn't have to be exclusively to just title description. I've done robots tags. If somebody wants the no index or no follow in there, you can put booleans or whatever. Anything that could translate to a token, we can put in there. Once we have that defined, we can set the global meta tags with those tokens, and then we test and verify, make sure everything is outputting as we desire. And that's it for meta tags. Okay, let's talk about Schema.org. Schema.org is a collaborative community with its mission is to create, maintain, and promote schemas for structured data on the internet, on web pages, email messages, and beyond. Schemas take the idea of structured data and free it from just being a rich object to basically any type of objects. The most commonly used ones right now are creative works, but it extends to events and medical entities, people, places, and things, actions like searching and offers. So basically, it really gets into your third grade science class to that periodic table of elements where we're really defining really intricate things about what our content is. How is this created? Let me zoom back in. We can define schemas inline. So at the top here of this div, we say that this is an item scope. The item type is a sports team. So here we're defining everything that's in that div exists as this one piece of information. So then we have these item props or item properties. So this sports team has a name. It's the New England Patriots. I don't know if you've heard of them before, but they're pretty good. You can have nested schemas, and this is where schemas take off from meta tags, and you have another div inside that says this property is a member. It's a member of an organization. That organization is the sports team. And then nested inside of that, this member is a person. He's a member of the organization role. That's a member of the sports team. And his name is Tom Brady. And he's also pretty good. He has other information like start date, end date, and his role. And this is all wrapped up into one piece. So this can go on and on and on and on. A second implementation of this, and one to early adopters in Drupal and other CMSs, is RDFA. So basically the same thing. You had a vocabulary. In the vocabulary is schema.org, and then your type of, and then we had these properties all the way through. Things can be nested, and uses all this extra markup. The way that has won is JSON LD, or JavaScript Object Notation for Linked Data. And this uses JavaScript, so it can be used in the head, it can be used in the body, it can be progressively loaded using all your fancy React things. And again, instead of HTML tags, it just has a list of names and values. So in this case, the outer script tag is the script, and it's a JSON LD. We're giving it that it's schema.org data. It has a type, it's a sports team, it has a name, and then inside of this it has a member, and then this bracket says that we're opening another section, and the type is organization role, and that opens up a member all the way down, and then we close these tags at the end. Yes?
What is the significance of the @ sign in the, for example, in type, at type?
It's a good question. Do not know. I'll find out for you.
What happens if you stick that script on a page whose content is a recipe for stew?
This script, if this script about the New England Patriots was on a recipe for stew, Google would probably give you a penalty. If this was a recipe schema on a recipe for stew, then you would probably be rewarded by maybe showing up for a stew recipe search.
Google is doing some parsing of the content of the page behind the scenes and attempting to match up the JSON LD to
Correct.
what's on the page. Is there anything you can do to help them so that they don't make a mistake?
Put your sign up for Google Search Console. If they do find something that they take, it's called a manual action. They will alert webmasters that a manual action has been taken against their site and give them a message that says, here's what we found. They basically say, here's what we found. We've taken you out of the search engine. Fix it. Let us know when you fix it. So no, there's like no proactive way, but there is a reactive way. So the latest thing, one of the first schemas that they came up with was reviews. So every e-commerce store in the world started marking up their reviews with schema.org data. They've been taking a lot of manual actions lately to against sites that have review schema but don't have a way to submit reviews. So that is a manual thing. There's no way a computer is figuring that out, or I should never say that. No way. It's highly unlikely that they don't have a way to see that. So yes, this is just because it is invisible to the user, it definitely could be abused, and I'm sure it has been abused. But Google is working on ways to catch those abusers, basically.
Yeah, no, it's not that I'm worried about scammers. I'm worried about me becoming a scammer when I don't mean.
Sure. Well, I have a link to the validation tools we're going to use at the end of this. Which brings us to our next page. What does Google care about? Again, it's not a secret. Google has a whole section of their website called the search gallery. So developers.google/search/docs/guide/search gallery, where they define all of the features that they have in search and which schemas you can use to get in there. So you want that article carousel at the top? It's articles. Is it a book? They love the book sidebar. Breadcrumbs, again, carousel for recipes and articles. Corporate contact, courses. Here's the critic reviews. Data sets, employee reviews, employer aggregate rating, basically. Events. You ever wonder how somebody's event appears on the right-hand side? Schema.org. Fact check for all the fake newsers out there. Job postings, live streams, local business, logo, media actions, occupation, just tons and tons of things. And they keep on adding more all the time. There are so many schemas. There are thousands of schemas. Do I have the page open? Oh yeah, here we go. We'll go to schemas and we'll do full list and we'll just go. So that old game of person, placer thing is like, we can play that all day and find schemas here. One of the fun one that was just added, bed details. I saw that on the list. I was like, oh, what's bed details? The quality of the given bed type available in the hotel room, suite, house, or apartment. So, seems pretty, whatever at the beginning, but if I'm running Airbnb or some booking site or an inn, maybe I want to think about marking that up in my content. But we could all be so lucky to work for those websites. For the most part, we will use some common schemas that every site needs, and then some common schemas that most sites need. So I define schemas every site needs as breadcrumbs. If you have breadcrumbs on your site, definitely mark it up as, because the Google gives you extra real estate and will list your breadcrumbs in their site. That's more links to your page, that's more links in search, that's more chances people will click on you. Most websites have an organization that run it. In the schema.org organization, you can cross off a lot of items, corporate contact, the logo, your social profile. So this is something called Same As Schema. That is basically me on Facebook, me on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Seems weird, but every website should have a website schema. You'd think that, they should know that it's a website, but not all URLs on the internet are websites these days. Just by saying it's a website, you can also add in the site links search box possibility. So if your site has a lot of search, or they feel like somebody wants to search on your site, they can put your search box in their search results, and that's using the search action schema. Those content-specific schemas, this is the big list of things that Google is looking for right now. So I would compare any of my clients' content with this list. Some recently added ones were FAQ page and QA page, which, I'd say that's like kind of 50-50. That could go on every website. We always have some kind of FAQ, or it seems like we always have some kind of FAQ or questions and answers. New and beta features are being added all the time. So I follow a bunch of SEO blogs. The most important one is Google Webmaster Central blog. So it's a blog spot. Google's Webmaster team has been running it for years. So basically, the people that run Search Console, the people that run the Webmaster Central, will announce changes they're making and things they're looking for. Like they've spoke about HTTPS, being a universal thing, or page speed being your ranking factor. When they announce these things on their blog, it usually becomes gospel throughout the internet world of, things that are going to happen. They say every website should be SSL, HTTPS to have an SSL certificate, and then, within a year, over 50% of the web goes and does that. It's pretty crazy. But over the last year, they've released schemas for these specific things, speakable. So if you are probably work for a large publishing company, and your article is selected as the main result for a Hey Google search, you can define what you want Hey Google to say. You can do this by doing a CSS selector or an ID, or you can do it by adding another meta tag or a piece of data inside of the speakable specification. Probably won't happen to us mortals for a while, but that got added in last summer. Data set. So if you have a large data set, you can people can actually use Google to search for it if you mark it up correctly. The fact, QA, and how-tos. Top places list. There was no announcements of this. This is just something that showed up on the page of like top places in the world you should visit. And then job postings. So Google's really into probably killing Indeed and Monster.com and just letting you search for a job from right inside Google. Live stream, that was another new one. If you have live streams, you can immediately let Google know that you're live and then tell them when they're not live. And then just recently they expanded the definition of what they're looking for with the Q&A page. Keeping up, that Google Webmaster Central blog. Google has a general company blog called The Keyword. If search-related things bubble up through there, chances are it's really, really, really important. Besides that, it's a lot of company fluff and do-gooder things and all sorts of Google World things. Since Schema.org is an open source project, everything they do is in the open. If they have accepted proposals, they appear on pending.schema.org. So you can actually see the list of schemas that are basically going to be proved to be inside of schema.org. Schema.org does their business on GitHub. So you can see actual issues that they're working on. You can see employees from Google and Facebook and Twitter on GitHub working on things. It's pretty cool. You can help them too if you want. But here, let's talk about putting it into Google. So how do we do that? The incredible schema.org METATAG module. So the schema.org METATAG module takes all the goodness that the METATAG module is and extends it for putting in schema. So basically the same presence. You have the schema.org module, and then you have individual submodules for each of the individual schemas. There are dozens now. There are dozens pending, but the module maintainer gets a little overwhelmed that it's taken off more than she would have imagined, I think. But it's very easy to extend, and you can create your own submodule and either contribute it back or just keep it on your own to implement your own schema. So basically you just copy one of the existing modules, change some words around, change the definitions that you need, and you have your own submodule. It's pretty cool. And it's basically everything I just said, except for it adds the markup as JSON LD in the head of the document. So instead of adding the meta tags, it adds it as JSON LD, and it does add new forms to all of our meta tag forms that we talked about before. The top level objects, so these are things that the submodules do, articles, organizations, people, videos, TV shows, products and services, all that good stuff. It has item list, so you can use in your views, you can define schema that it's a list of things. No longer is it just a bunch of empty divs, it is an item list for schema. It could be an item list for products. Inside of those things, there are second level objects. So just like we had sports team and we had an organization under that, we have these different sub-level things. They're not available at the top, but most of the time you're not going to have an offer that isn't on a product. You're not going to have a program membership without a program. So these are additional schemas that you get by default. See if I can zoom back in. That does nothing. Okay, so like the form, the METATAG form, we get these extra fields, but again, a little further down, you get nested fields inside of the forms. So on this website, this is a website schema, I have @ID, which makes it unique. Usually you put the URL there. The URL, the name. Inside of that, we have a potential action. So what can I do on this website? My potential action is a search action, and then we give it a query name and how to search on the site. So that @ was probably to make it unique. So this is the one type of this schema. And then on my own simple website, that's what we were just looking at the screen. This is what gets output. So we have the type, the ID, the name, the URL. Here's that potential action, the search action. And then we have the URL with the Q equals, and then I put in a little variable at the end, search term string, and then the query input, search term string, so they know how to search on my website. And then who's the publisher of the website? Me, I'm a person, I have a name, and it's the same as this thing over here. Where it really gets super cool is on that content screen. So we're in our meta tags. We've set our global thing, everything on a site. We've set the homepage things, and then we get down into the content things. So here, I'm not going to work in just content. I'm going to go in and I'm going to work in my article, or my book, or my video, or my hotel room. And I'm going to go specifically down into the form. So here I'm working on my person content type.
So I've been trying to reconcile some of the semantic HTML tags, the sitemap, and the meta tags in Schema. Is there redundancy there because they're doing different things, or what?
There is definitely some redundancy. So you're going to have your title and your description repeated a lot, but different things are going to consume different things. So Google is going to read your title, your page title, and your description, and then they're going to consume the heck out of the schema.org. Facebook's going to consume your title, your OG title, your OG description, your type, your URL, and all of those OG tags. So we're creating multiple redundant metadata for different consumers of that data.
Oh, goody.
Yeah. For the most part, you'd probably be safe on Twitter to just ignore all Twitter card stuff, unless your main primary marketing target is Twitter, because they do consume OG. Most of the other big consumers, like Pinterest, they didn't create their own; they just consume the Open Graph data. So it depends on who your potential consumers for your websites are for this data. But the future is definitely schema.org. So if there was one thing you wanted to concentrate, it would be on this. So I have the person content type. Instead of using Drupal users, I use a person content type for security reasons. We take all the fields of that content type, and I can populate it on this really long form. Once we've done that, Google has a structured data testing tool. So once we've implemented this, we can go and test our output. Again, you can give it a URL, or you can copy and paste HTML into it, or even just the schema output itself into it. and it'll give you an output of what it's found. So on this page that I put in there, there's 2 schemas, website and person, and it tells me what it found, and then I have an error that I need to go back and fix. So, to sum up, we install the schema.org METATAG module, enable any submodules we need. Chances are by this point we've already have our fields and all the tokens we need, so we can go and configure those global things we need, the site-specific things on the homepage of the website, and then the default settings per our content type, and then we test and verify. And we have come to the end of the presentation. I have some stickers up here, Lego Uncle Jim and Canopy, that I would love for you to take away. I'll be around for the rest of the day until I decide to drive through the snow home. But you can always find me online. The slides are online, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Okay, I'm going to hit the button now. Nobody has any questions. I've answered them all.